Chargers. Touchdown, UCLA.
With USC great and NFL stud, Frostee Rucker.
The Trojans back in front.
And LAFB founder Ryan Dyrud on the Believe Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
What's up, Los Angeles? Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the LA Football Podcast here on the LA Football Network. We are also always on the Believe Podcast Network. Ryan Dyrud here, co-host of the show, riding solo today. Frost will be back with me later in the week. We got a great show today. I'm excited to get into some football talk. I'm going to do some generic stuff. I know we try to be real LA-centric. That's the point of the show. And I'm going to get to that. Don't worry. But I do want to touch on some stuff that's happened. The Sam Darnold trade. He's a former LA football player, USC Trojan. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about that and, my thoughts on it, if it's a good trade, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to talk a little bit about Mac Jones, if the Niners are really taking him. I mean, I know this is an LA podcast, but the Niners are a rival of our Rams. And so I think it's interesting that they gave up all this draft capital to potentially take in my opinion, a lesser quarterback. And that's nothing against Mac Jones. Great kid, worked his butt off, deserves to be in the NFL, absolutely. But giving up a lot of capital for a quarterback when they have better options, and that seems to be the way they're swaying. So I want to talk a little about that. And then I'm going to get into a few we'll call them pro mock drafts. Todd, McShay, and Dan Jeremiah, see where they have the Rams and Chargers, or who they have taking. So I feel like that would be kind of fun to look at there. We've done some fan mocks. I've done some mocks. I know tons of podcasts out there doing mocks for both Rams and Chargers. What are the pros saying? What do we think about it? Yeah, pros, quote unquote pros. So we'll get on to that. So today's show brought to you as always by BetOnline.Ag. Plenty of sports still on. March Madness wrapped up. I don't know if you guys watched the game last night. Kind of a snooze fest. The UCLA Gonzaga game was much, much better. Obviously, I'm biased being here in LA, covering LA football, UCLA football, but I don't think anyone would deny that it was one of the greatest college football games of recent memory. And there's been a lot of great ones. We always have recency bias after a good game. Like, oh man, that was the greatest game I've ever seen. But it really was that good of a game. It was that exciting, I think. It just, full throttle. So that was to me the championship game last night was, kind of snooze, but hey, hats off to Baylor. They were just dominant. Those guards can play great. Anyway, though, BetOnline.Ag is your spot to go and wager. We still got the NHL and the NBA. Baseball just started back up. There's plenty of prop bets for the draft. The NFL draft is actually, I'll be probably betting more on that. So BetOnline.Ag, head there today on either your desktop or mobile, and you're going to get a 50% welcome bonus. Tell them the guys at LAFB sent you. So, let's get to this first topic here. I want to talk about Sam Darnold. So I think I'm a big Sam Darnold guy. I've liked him, obviously, since he was at USC. I still think that USC Penn State Rose Bowl game was one of the best college football games I can remember watching. And there's been so many good ones, so it's hard to just pigeonhole that. But it was such a good game. Back and forth. Sam Darnold has a phenomenal game. And that was the moment, I think that was his sophomore year, if I'm not mistaken, because he came in after game 3 or whatever when, the Trojans were just getting absolutely demolished by Alabama. And then Darnold kind of took the team over from that, and they led him to a 9-3 record. They ended up winning the Rose Bowl. And that game so he had a great season. And that game against Penn State, I was like, this is a great quarterback. LA said that. I remember listening to the Petros and Money show on AM 570. Petros obviously is a huge USC guy. He played there. But I remember him talking about how Sam Darnold, he was just so high. And I'm like, this is the new coming of great college quarterbacks, great USC quarterbacks, and will be a great pro. And he was a great college quarterback. And then he gets drafted by the Jets, had a decent rookie season, and then he's kind of almost been on a decline since then. There's the whole Adam Gase effect, who, we can say what he's done to quarterbacks in the past. He basically got, jobs because of working with Peyton Manning. And at the beginning, he was like, oh, he's some genius. And really, it was Peyton Manning running the show. And it made Adam Gase look like a genius. And then he gets a job with Chicago. Then he gets a job with Miami. well, Chicago's an OC, then Miami as a head coach, then another job with the Jets as a head coach. I can't see him getting another head coach job, but I've been surprised before. So, but I think that had a lot of problems with Sam Darnold's maturation because the kid's only 23 years old still. He's still rookie age. I mean, some of the rookies coming in are older than that in this draft class. So, I definitely wouldn't give up on him, but I know that his career didn't start off the way many people wanted, especially, Sam Darnold specifically. But yeah, so the trade happened, a second round pick, I believe a 6th round pick, and then multiple 4s in the future. I'm sure there's some speculation or hit certain goals for those, how they kick in. But he's heading to Carolina, where I think it's a great fit for him. Joe Brady obviously is a great offensive mind, one of the new up and coming, probably soon to be head coaches. If he turns Darnold's career around, he for sure will be a head coach rather quickly. But yeah, he's got some good weapons down there. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey coming off of injury, but still, I think one of the best running backs, best weapons in the game. DJ Moore is a very, very good receiver. They have good tight ends. So he's got a better nucleus to work with than what he had in New York, who is in full rebuild mode right now. And I still think he could have turned around with that new coaching staff. Getting the OC that they got, I think it's going to behoove whoever the quarterback, which we think is going to be Zach Wilson. And I think Darnold could have been successful there too. But sometimes, just a clean slate, new coaching staff there. Carolina is coming into their second year with their coaching staff, and they can start fresh there. And I don't know if Teddy Bridgewater will end up being there and there'll be a QB comp, or they'll end up trading him away if anyone wants to take on that contract. But I think it's a good move for, I think both teams. I think Sam Darnold's a very good quarterback still, has a very bright future. So if I was a Jets fan, the organization, I wouldn't have wanted to move on yet. I know everyone gets hyped about college prospects, but Sam Darnold was a premier college prospect coming out, and look who he is. So there's no guarantee Zach Wilson's going to be the savior, and all of a sudden, great, he could have the same trajectory as what Sam Darnold's done. So that's why me personally, I'm much more leery when teams, obviously have tons of discussions, but specifically fans like, okay, move on. We got this draft prospect. It's like, you don't know. Not every year you have Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert who just light the league on fire their rookie seasons, or Mahomes after 1 year, or you have a lot more growing pains. You have Drew Lock's case is much more common, where it's going to take a few years. Obviously, Josh Allen, everyone talks about that kind of ad nauseum, but he was awful his first 2 years, and then year 3 he was very good. So you have to give these quarterbacks some time, and just dumping one for another rookie, I know it resets the market, so financially sometimes it can be wise. It's just not the way I would go unless they're literally like god awful. But Sam Darnold is not god awful. He definitely has a lot of potential. And as a former Trojan, I hope he does well. And I'm glad he went to Carolina. It's a team that, for us out here, Rams, Chargers, no really affiliation there. It's not like he went to the Niners or went to the Broncos for the Chargers again. So he went to a team that, we can root for. I like Christian McCaffrey. So I hope he does good. I think he'll be good for them, though. So I think it was a good move. I was surprised they gave up as much as they did, considering everyone in the world knows the Jets are moving on. So I thought they could have gotten away giving a lot less. But in hindsight, it's a lot less than they would have been giving for, say, Deshaun Watson, if that ever matriculates into something, which who knows now with all the crazy legal stuff going on. But overall, I think it's a good move. So good for them. Sam Darnold, former Trojan, hope he has a fantastic career, or he rebuilds his career with Carolina. All right, before we move on, I don't know about you guys, but I don't always relax well. Sometimes I do, but sometimes, I just got so much going on now with a 1-year-old daughter, with obviously running this full business, full-time podcasting, editing articles, Photoshop, all this stuff. And so it's hard for me to shut my brain off and chill. I'm always thinking, when you work from home, I don't know if any of you out there listening do, but you're always working. There's never really a time to shut down, but sometimes you need that. You overthink, you get easily stressed out. It's the worst. So you need to actually be able to shut down, relax, Netflix and chill, if you want to call it that. So I did my homework and I found a company called Sunday Scaries. It's a delicious vitamin boosted CBD gummies, or CBD company, if you will. They become a must-have in my daily routine. Chill me out in just about 20 minutes, and they help take the edge off so you can maintain composure and live, as they say, scare-free. So you got to check out my friend Sunday Scaries. There's no risk to buy. The company offers a 100% lifetime money-back guarantee. If the product's not for you, that's okay. You'll get your money back. not never. You will get your money back. Sunday Scaries is in the stress relieving business, not the stress causing business. And because I believe in them so much, I got you 25% off to prove it. You're going to visit SundayScaries.com. Use my promo code LAFB. That's promo code LAFB for your 25% off. 25% off at SundayScaries.com. Promo code LAFB. You're going to love it. Join the squad. All right. So now let's talk about Mac Jones and this Niners trade. Crazy. They gave up 2 firsts and a third, I believe. I don't have it right in front of me. Talking off the cuff a little bit, but I believe it was 2 firsts and a third, maybe even a little more, to move up from the low teens to 3rd overall. And the thought was, when it happened, is they were just, whoever was there at 3, because everyone pretty much at this point, obviously things can happen, but it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. Trevor Lawrence will be one of the Jags. Zach Wilson will be to the Jets. And so knowing that, they were comfortable with everyone else on the board at 3. They wanted to get the 3, so they just had their pick of the litter, basically. So if they wanted a quarterback, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, the aforementioned Mac Jones. If they want to tackle, you have Penei Sewell, you have Rashawn Slater, you have all these top prospects that they have the pick of because we know the top 2 going. Well, now it's all coming out, and Rams fans, you should be very happy about this. Very happy about this. Now it's coming out that their target is Mac Jones. Nothing against Mac Jones. Seems like an awesome kid. Had a fantastic year at Alabama. But just by watching tape, just by watching college football games, I think it's pretty easy to surmise that Justin Fields is a better prospect. And again, we're talking prospects, no guarantee in the NFL. Better prospect. Trey Lance, in my opinion, is a better pro. I love Trey Lance. If you watch Trey Lance film, I know it's lesser competition at North Dakota State, but I love Trey Lance. I just think he's a phenomenal specimen. But anyway, both those two have higher ceilings, much higher ceilings than Mac Jones. What I can say is Mac Jones may have a higher floor. I don't really think so. I mean, Justin Fields did great things at Ohio State. We saw him against Clemson, on the big stage, take down Trevor Lawrence and looked fantastic in that game. I know it's one game, but he rose to the occasion, looked great. But you could maybe make the argument that Mac Jones has a higher floor just because he's more of a prototypical pocket passer. He's fairly accurate. He's smart. Not the other guys aren't, but it's just he's going to be a decent quarterback. But you're going to give all that up for a decent quarterback with a high floor and not go after a potential home run, game-changing QB in Lance or Fields. If the Niners truly do take Mac Jones, Rams fans, you need to be dancing in the streets. Because what I've seen, and again, I hate trying to sound like I'm talking bad because this is a kid trying to achieve his dream and he absolutely deserves to be in the NFL. But we're just comparing, this is what we do. We're comparing players. Mac Jones is essentially a younger Jimmy Garoppolo. His style of play doesn't have the best arm talent. He is accurate, but he's not going to light up the field. He's not going to be able to throw 65-yard bombs, air yards. He's not going to be running out of the pocket like we've seen rolling to his opposite side, throwing to the opposite hash like we've seen Wilson and Fields do. That's not him. He's just a pocket passer that can be accurate, that can run the playbook. So again, if he was there at 12 when the Niners actually picked, it might not be a bad pick. And he may have been there at 12. I know there's a lot of talk now that all 5 quarterbacks may be gone before the 10th pick, but he could have been there at 12 and they could have given up nothing. This feels like draft day, when Kevin Costner gives every 3 first-round picks to move up to 1 and then ends up taking the linebacker that he could have got at 7. That's how I had this feels. And again, it can be smoke screens. I know a lot of people are saying that. My one reason why I don't really believe that, because I always think it is smoke screens, almost always in the draft. I mean, they're just messing with people. There's former scouts that are now analysts and said, yeah, we used to just put stuff out just so the analysts would go crazy with it. And it's like, yeah, we're not doing that at all. We tell them our big board. And so, yes, that absolutely happens. But the Niners have no reason to smoke screen. They're at pick 3 now. We know who pick 1. We know who pick 2 is. So who are they? Like, why would they be trying to fool anyone? They can have whoever they want. They already traded all this stuff. So it's not like they're doing smoke screens to see if someone will trade with them so they can move back. Because then why would they have traded to 3 in the first place? So there's no reason for them to push a different narrative or say they're drafting someone when they're actually leaning towards someone else. So it's either someone in the front office is just playing games and just messing for fun because there's really no value to it, or they're really going to take Mac Jones. And it's almost like this Niners organization now with John Lynch at the helm and Kyle Shanahan, who Kyle Shanahan has a lot of say, especially for a quarterback. Like, I think John Lynch is saying, who do you want? We'll get him for you. Kind of like with McVay and the Rams. If you listen last episode, Jordan Rodriguez was on, and she even said, and I knew this too, but she flat out said, Leslie is the GM, but Sean McVay runs the show. He's the one that actually meets with Stan Kroenke, the owner. He makes the call. He's the one that said, I want Matthew Stafford, make it happen. Sean McVay runs the show. Kyle Shanahan's very similar up in San Francisco. John Lynch is the GM. Kyle Shanahan runs the show. And, he already passed in his first year as coach. He passed on Pat Mahomes. He passed on Deshaun Watson for Solomon Thomas, who's not even there anymore. And not only did he pass on those two guys, but he decided at that point he would rather have Brian Hoyer as a starting quarterback, and then they drafted CJ Beathard out of Iowa in the third round to be the QB competition. So that was their first mistake. No one really wants to, everyone loves Kyle Shanahan. I love him too. I think he's a great offensive mind. No one really talks about that though, but that was a big sass. So now if they do this, and again, these are prospects, there's no guarantee, but you give up all that draft capital for a high floor guy, Rams fans, I would be happy. I would be happy. To me, this Niners team, it's like they're looking for the next Joe Montana, when in today's NFL, they should be looking for the next Steve Young. And it's a weird thing to say because Joe Montana is one of the best to ever do it. And so I'm not downplaying, but his style of play in today's NFL, if Joe Montana played today, I don't think he would be the Joe Montana we know. Steve Young played today, he would still be Steve Young, if not better, because of the way offenses now are designed with that style of play. So they're looking for a Joe Montana, which is Mac Jones, a pocket passer, not super mobile, fairly cerebral though. Good player, absolutely. When they could have a Steve Young and Justin Fields or Trey Lance. Just my 2 cents on it. But hey, if they don't want to do that, who am I going to stop them? Because that's good for us Rams fans, right? It's good for the Rams. So, yeah. That's kind of all I have to say on that. I just thought that was interesting that those were going to be that's just what they're targeting. So I just think that's fun. So okay, but now let's look at some mocks for our Rams and Chargers. All right. So I want to start with let's go. Todd McShay just released his draft. Todd McShay, it's funny. A few years ago, and I want to say this too. First of all, I will never call any of these, really anyone in general, like a moron. Like I see that all the time on Twitter. Like, wow, that's moronic. Like, what an idiot. Who has that as their mock? Like, do they even watch film? Blah, blah, blah. First of all, every year teams make the craziest selections, especially if the Raiders are in the draft. You never know what the hell's going to happen. I remember 2-3 years. Was it 2 years ago? They take Clinton Farrell 4 overall. Like no expert had Farrell even going in the first round, or if they did, it was like late first. He went 4th overall. So you can never call a mock draft expert a moron because it's like we're all just guessing here. Now, some of them have good sources. They do talk to people, but again, smoke screens, people tell them things like it is. They're not no GM or anything is going to give their hand and tell them tell them who they're going to pick, because they're not going to leak that, especially if you don't play necessarily or you're in a draft spot where you have teams that can jump up and pass you and take the guy that you wanted. So they're not going to show their hand and do that. But yeah, Tom McShay, I felt like was a lot better or more on point a few years back when it was when him and Mel Kiper were really the only 2 guys, and Mel Kiper had gotten so far off that McShay seemed like that much smarter. But now you have so many more mock draft experts that now McShay is more on that kind of gone far off, and we have new people coming in. But I want to go over McShay's draft because it's very different, I think, than a lot we've seen. So let's go ahead and I'm going to share his mock here so we can take a look at it. So yeah, pretty chalk 1-2. Has Trevor Lawrence going 1, Zach Wilson of the Jets, has Mac Jones going 3 the Niners, as we just discussed at length. Falcons are the interesting one because I think Kyle Pitts is a great pick for them. A lot of people have them maybe taking a quarterback as well or trading back. They just came out today that they have been fielding calls for that 4th pick. But as he has it, Pitts, you have Jamar Chase, the best receiver in the draft, going 5 to the Bengals. It's a great weapon for Joe Burrow, who, guess what? They played together on a national championship team just a year ago. So it makes a lot of sense. Devonta Smith, great receiver. Slight frame, not a huge build, but just a tactician when it comes to route running, great hands, can kind of do everything. Speed guy, go over the middle, run up the sideline. Like, it's kind of a do-it-all receiver, similar like a Keenan Allen. I like to comp them to, not necessarily in exact size and frame, but they play similar. Jalen Waddle was injured a lot last year, but the talent's there. He's a complete burner. A lot of people too, and myself included, think the Lions will explore quarterbacks, especially how McShay has this draft going with 2 great quarterbacks still on the board. A guy that can come and maybe sit behind Jared Goff for a year. But if they feel good about Goff, Jalen Waddle certainly gives him a weapon who they need after just losing, Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones. Patrick Surtain to the Panthers, after just getting Sam Darnold, they want to beef up the defense, even though they used every pick last year on defense. Still need to improve. And then has the Broncos taken Trey Lance. I think the Broncos, obviously I think they're pretty content with Locke as their guy, yet they absolutely, no matter what, are bringing someone else in for competition, preferably a veteran option, but there's really not any great veteran options left unless they were to trade. But if they don't have to trade up and Lance or Fields fall to them at 9, it would be silly for them not to at least take him. And then, hey, if Locke's the guy, you have maybe trade bait with Lance or Fields. If Locke's not the guy, then you have this guy sitting in the wings who can be the guy. So they have Lance going there. J.C. Horn of the Cowboys. A lot of people have J.C. Horn as the number 1 corner. I don't think you can go wrong with him or Patrick Surtain or Caleb Farley. Farley's only issue is the injury history with the recent back surgery now. So you get a trade here. Patriots move up, get Justin Fields, which I think is just crazy. Fields falls to 11 in this mock. Crazier things have happened, but I would just be surprised if that actually does happen. Micah Parsons to the Eagles. And then you have the Chargers. If this scenario, I was talking to someone on Twitter, Matthew Thompson, I believe, Irish Chargers fan. Shout out Ireland. I love Ireland. Was there just a few years ago. Beautiful place. Great beer, great people. But if this scenario happens and not a single offensive lineman goes in the top 12 and the Chargers have their pick of any tackle in the draft, Chargers fans, you're sitting in just ecstasy. If Penei Sewell or Rashawn Slater, who he has going next, either one. Obviously, I would take Sewell first. I think he's in a different category. Stephen Haglund, who writes for the LAFB network, and we do a live show now on Saturdays. I know he has him a tier above everyone else, just in a separate world, if you will, and then everyone else after. I do not see a world where not one of these tackles goes in the top 10. I don't really see a world where 2 of them don't go in the top 10. But if somehow none of them go in the top 10 and the Chargers have their pick at 13, you run that card up to the commissioner as fast as you can. You reconnect Penei Sewell with Justin Herbert, who played together at Oregon, and you have your left tackle for the next decade. And we already saw what they did on the offensive line in free agency. You go immediately from the worst offensive line, not just in football last year, but probably that we've seen in like the last decade, to, on paper, one of the better offensive lines in the entire league. Probably top 5. You figure you have Corey Linsley, all-pro center. Brian Bulaga, very good right tackle, if healthy. That's always the question mark. Penei Sewell is your left tackle, who is one of the best left tackle prospects we've seen in quite some time. You added Matt Filer, who's a good veteran, just kind of swing guard, can play wherever. You added Ode Abushi, who had a career season last year with Detroit. Your offensive line looks completely different, but a whole hell of a lot better. And you can even add more depth later in the draft. So that's a slam dunk for the Chargers at 13. And I just don't see that happening. But hey, it's a pipe dream, right? It's a pipe dream. All right, so I'm not going to go through every pick because we're just focusing on the Rams and Chargers here. So we get to the Chargers' second pick, and he has him going with another offensive lineman, Creed Humphrey. This is an interesting pick because I think Creed Humphrey is a fantastic prospect, can play center or guard. In this scenario, he will move to guard. You're not going to move the all-pro center Corey Linsley over. So you can move Humphrey over. Even though they signed Filer and Odeabushi is only on a 1-year contract. So whether you rotate them or you start O'Day or you just have a competition. So a lot of people will see this and say, what? You sign 3 offensive linemen and you use your first round pick. Like, you got to go corner here, which I think is a good pick too, depending what corners are available, which I at least will show you. I believe there was a slew of them he had go here. Yeah, Asante Samuel Jr. goes to the Broncos at 40, which is a great pick for them. I don't know if necessarily they do that after the free agency they had. They have 3 Pro Bowl corners now, and they have Michael Odemugie, who they drafted last year. So they have 4 very good corners. I don't know if they're going to use a second on another corner, but you never know. Then you have Kelvin Joseph go. Then you have Elijah Molden go. So a lot of corners went. So I'm sure just the way the board was, it's hard to pass up a guy like Creed Humphrey when all those corners go and you may be reaching for that 6th or 7th corner prospect. So yeah, I do not hate the pick at all, because you're fortifying the offensive line for years to protect your biggest asset, which is Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's going to be great. He has weapons already. You can add some back talent weapons later in the draft. The Chargers have a lot of picks this year, so they can do more as it goes on. But a talent like Creed Humphrey, who a lot of people have as a first round grade, even if he falls to 47, I do not hate it whatsoever, even though they did sign 3 offensive linemen in free agency, already used a first round pick on a lineman. So I know it's not sexy, but we've talked a lot on the show. Number 1 priority for the Chargers is protecting your quarterback. And so with this pick, they were able to do that again. And he would be just a great addition. And then you have to attack that corner position later. But also, I've talked about a lot, is the beauty of Brandon Staley is what he's able to do with his schemes to use players differently. And so you don't have to have necessarily, as long as you have a couple top tier talent guys, he can use lesser known guys and schematically get them in. Because once you're in the NFL level, all these guys are talented. And it's not like these guys on rosters are just bums. Like, I hear people say, this guy's trash, this guy's garbage, this guy's bums. No, they're not. Sometimes players are meant to play in a certain system or meant to be utilized to a certain skill set. And coaches sometimes don't get out of their own way and try to force players to do something they're not good at. And so that's why they bounce around the league. They don't make it. They do this. And that's why you see last year, the Los Angeles Rams, Darius Williams and Troy Hill, who really relatively unknown unless you're a Rams fan. And all of a sudden they become these hot commodities in free agency. And Darius Williams signs a first round tender with the Rams, and Troy Hill signs a good contract with the Browns. So that says a lot about coaching. And that's why I know a lot of people will see this pick and say, man, they need to go corner there. But I think that the idea that Brandon Staley can utilize who he has and get the best out of them is why this is okay. But again, it's Todd McShay, so take it with a grain of salt. All right, before we get to the Rams pick, finally, pick 57. We're almost there, Rams fans. Thanks for hanging tight. I do want to mention our last sponsor of the show, which is Kanon sunglasses. I like sunglasses. I'm a big sunglass guy. I use usually I just have cheap ones from the gas station, but I do have a pair of Von Zippers, or kind of like my nice, quote unquote, nice sunglasses. So Kanon sunglasses, though, are made exclusively with polarized lenses for optimal clarity. They're made with Japanese optics that make their lenses clearer, lighter, and stronger, and Italian handcrafted frames that are impossible to scratch, which is crazy. My sunglasses are scratched to hell. So use the exclusive code KanonCast15 at Kanon.com. I'm going to spell that for you. It's Kaenon. So KanonCast15 at Kanon.com to receive 15% off your first pair. That's KanonCast15. Kanon, clearly better. And I'll put the link in the description if you don't want to have to spell it out. So you can search that and get a pair of sunglasses, 15% off. Just like that. Summer's approaching, guys. Got to look good for summer. Get ready. Everyone's getting vaccinated. We're getting ready to get back in the world. Can't wait, right? We're going to be at the SoFi Stadium here soon. I know it's a dome, but it's a clear dome. Get a pair of Kanon sunglasses. There you go. You look fresh in the stands and no one can sun your eyes. All right. So we finally get to the Rams pick 57. They could trade up. I don't see it. If anything, they'll probably trade down. So if anything, they probably won't be picking 57. They'll probably trade down and get a pick or two more to add on, and then just really hit it hard in those mid rounds, which, hey, Les Snead and Sean McVay, they've been great at. So it's not exciting, the draft the first day, because they never have a pick. It's not even that exciting the second day, because usually you're waiting around to the very end of the second round because they're good every year. But this is how they build their roster, build their team, build their fortitude. And this is why they've been a 4-win team 4 seasons in a row, four winning seasons in a row, if I can say it like that. So I'm getting to them, pick 57. I know you'll see this right here, which is disappointing to a lot of Rams fans. The Seattle Seahawks, the rival Seahawks, Todd McShay hasn't taken Quinn Miners right before them. Devastating. So they take Chaz Surratt, linebacker out of North Carolina. Obviously, I think this is kind of the position at 57. It's either got to be center or inside backer, if we're talking strictly need. Now, Les Snead and Sean McVay don't draft for need always. We saw it last year when everyone thought the same thing. He's going to be an offensive lineman or an inside backer, and they went running back, receiver with their first 2 picks. And then they went safety with their next pick. So, which didn't seem like a need at all, and they ended up drafting 2 safeties last year. So we never know what the Rams are going to do. But I like Chaz Surratt. I talked about him with Jordan last episode. He came to North Carolina as a quarterback, moved over to linebacker because the quarterback comp was too good. He wasn't going to play. Ended up becoming a really good linebacker. And now here he is, a 2nd-round pick for the Rams. I think he can play side of the sideline. It's kind of your hard-nosed backer. He'd be a good weak side guy, as Todd McShay points out here. I think it's a good pick. If one of these centers that you want don't fall to you there, I think that's a good pick for them. I wouldn't hate them taking an edge rusher too. I know Justin Owa is a really good, defensive end as well. It depends how he'd fit in that 3-4 scheme, but I think he's just an athlete that could play anywhere. So in this scenario, they could have had him too, but I like Chaz Surratt. I think he'd be an upgrade immediately to that inside backer room. And if you can't get a center, which we see 2 go right away, Landon Dickerson and Miners right before. So we'll see. I'm going to get into, I'm probably going to record, because Frostee will be back with me end of the week. So I'm going to record another thing just in between, a little film study. I was talking to my man Sly on Twitter, and he's a big offensive tackle guy, or big offensive line guy, excuse me. And so we're going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to break down some of these centers, his top 5 centers in the draft that are actually obtainable for the Rams. So not ones that would go in the first round. Josh Myers, Quinn Miners, Drew Dalman, Kendrick Green, and Ryan McCollum. So I'm going to do a film study of those 5 guys, and I'll have that up here in the probably next couple of days. We'll do a whole separate episode just for that. So excited about that. But let's quickly get into Daniel Jeremiah's draft now, who, I unfortunately won't be able to talk Rams because he only does the first round. And I'll go through it real quick, but he is very similar here in the first 3. He has Trey Lance go to the Falcons, though. As I talked about, they do have a potential for a quarterback. Kyle Pitts falls to the Bengals. And you have Chase go. So basically, he just flip-flop Pitts and Chase. There you go. The Lions taking a quarterback like I talked about with Justin Fields. Rashawn Slater goes to the Panthers. Penei Sewell, like I said, 2 guys in the top 10, which I think is much more likely. And then so the Chargers, you're going to get your corner in J.C. Horn, who I think is a phenomenal pick. If they can't get one of those top 2 tackles, I think you could still take Christian Darrisaw. You could still take Samuel Cosme. I still like Elijah Vera Tucker. A lot of scouts and stuff will call him a guard. I think he can kick out and play tackle if needed. So I really like J.C. Horn here. I think it'd be a good pick for them. And it's a good mock draft, I think, from Daniel Jeremiah, who's one of the most respected in the business, in my opinion. So yeah, we'll just quickly go through that. But kind of a shorter show today. I just wanted to go through a few things, a few thoughts, not necessarily football, but they do still relate a little bit. And then I wanted to go through these mock drafts. But like I said, I'll do a little center prospect review for the Rams here coming up shortly. And then Frost will be back with me at the end of the week. We have a guest coming on that we're pretty excited about. So that should be a good show. So thank you all for tuning in. Please make sure to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening. If you're on YouTube, we're at LAFB Network, Facebook, Instagram, all LAFB Network. If you're listening just on podcast platform, just search the LA Football Podcast. I'm Ryan Dyrud. You can find me at Ryan Dyrud LAFB. Appreciate you guys. Have a great few days here, and we'll talk to you all very, very soon.